Last on Everdark, Balthazar has his Robert Downey Jr. I am Iron Man moment, but instead telling not just his house, but every Eyros vampire out there that he is the immortal Eyros, and he wants them to return to him. Everdark, Episode 69, Eyros Reborn. The room erupted after Balthazar's I am Iron Man statement, not only with the exclamations in the room over Balthazar's true nature, but the cell phones that started ringing and buzzing off the hook. Julian watched as vampires' faces were illuminated by the screens of their smartphones as they answered texts and voice calls from other Eyros bloodline vampires. Julian had felt the call go out farther than this room, but as he saw the multiple calls and texts flooding the phones of those in House Ravenscroft, he realized how very many other vampires had been contacted. "Yes, you actually heard that. Balthazar is Eyros," one said. "No, he is not insane," a few more said. "Oh, by the way, King Damon is real and staying in our house. He often doesn't wear pants. Yeah, things have been busy with us." "No, I'm not crazy either," another said. "You're coming?" everyone asked. "You're not coming? Don't be a fool. You have to come," others followed up with. "You're having a breakdown?" a dozen or more asked. Yes, we all understand," everyone told them. "It's a shock, but it's true. Come." Julian glanced up at the lord of the house. Balthazar stood there in front of the fire, his lower lip caught by his teeth as he looked at the chaos that had erupted in his own house, not to mention his own bloodline, by his own hand. He appeared a bit like a little kid who had revealed that Santa Claus did actually exist to a group that had long thought they knew better. It was part mischievousness and part fear. Damon stepped closer to Balthazar, and though Julian couldn't hear what they were saying to one another, they were clearly talking about how things were being received from the expressions on both their faces. Balthazar let out a laugh that sounded slightly hysterical. Damon patted his back.
"They really are best friends."
They should have been the most unlikely of comrades, but somehow Balthazar and Damon worked perfectly together. Balthazar would never worship Damon. He would always speak his mind, and Damon could get the truth from someone he could trust.
"Speaking of best friends..."
Julian shifted over to Christian, who stood below Balthazar, looking rather overwhelmed, and clearly wondering if this was what happened when Pandora's box was opened. Julian touched the back of Christian's left hand to get his attention.
"Are you okay?"
Julian asked. Christian turned towards him with his eyebrows lifted.
"You're asking me if I'm okay? But what about you? To have Camorn here?"
"Yeah..."
Julian scrubbed the back of his neck as he remembered finding Camorn on the beach and then realizing that he was the one who had killed his parents. The motivating factor of his life had been right before him. How many times had he imagined finding the person or persons responsible? Well, he'd believed them vampires, so his initial thought was to expose them to the world. And then the idea had been that they'd be punished, perhaps imprisoned. More likely, though he hadn't allowed himself to truly think this, be vivisected. He hadn't really realized what he would do if he found the exact person responsible, though. He had just wanted his parents' deaths to be acknowledged for what it was. Murder, that they had been right about vampires being real, that he had been right, that their deaths hadn't been mere accidents.
"Julian."
Christian clasped both of Julian's hands in his. Julian lifted his head. There were tears burning behind his eyes.
"I can't kill him. I can't. I should be strong enough to do that, but..."
"Strength? That wouldn't be strength,"
Christian cried. When other vampires started looking at them with interest, he lowered his voice.
"He'll get what's coming to him, Julian. Damon won't allow him to simply walk away from this. You heard what he said about there being no deals."
"And I know that he's got to be king, too. If keeping Camorn around, as preceptor even, is good politically, he might have to do it,"
Julian pointed out. And how did he feel about that? He didn't know. Christian studied his face carefully.
"Damon chooses you above everything else. It's why he didn't kill Elena, even though he thought he should."
Julian swallowed.
"I don't know what to hope for. That Camorn's killed or allowed to live. It's crazy. I never really thought about what would happen when I got to this point. I mean, he's right there, locked in a room, and I have no idea what I want.
You don't have to decide right this moment.
Christian rubbed his shoulders.
That's something that being a vampire and having forever is teaching me. We have nothing but time.
True.
Julian gave him a tight smile. Those words did help, though. He didn't have to decide now, or tomorrow, or the day after that. He shook himself. He didn't have to decide anything about Caemorn at this moment. But Christian needed to deal with Balthazar announcing himself now. He saw that William was rapidly texting a whole group.
What's the word about Balthazar?
Julian asked. William looked up, still texting frantically, and said,
Half the people think it's a joke, half the people think that Balthazar's lost his mind, and half the people think it's not a joke, he's not crazy, he's just ridiculously arrogant.
That's 3 halves.
Christian pointed out.
Well, yes, but there is overlap.
William explained.
And what do you think about it, William?
Christian asked.
Most of us aren't surprised.
It was Isabel who answered. She was William's near constant companion.
Truly, once King Damon was found to be real, we all started wondering about the others.
William explained.
There are no Eyros vampires that are stronger than Balthazar, and considering he's only 200 years old, that shouldn't be possible. In fact, that's why some think he was exiled.
Julian tried to sense the thoughts of everyone in the room about Balthazar, but when he did, he got blasted by a cacophony of noise. Damon simply reached over and dimmed it for him. Julian's shoulders eased, and he rubbed the back of his neck again as he shot the Vampire King a thankful look. Damon's mind caressed his even as he remained by the fireplace with Balthazar and Arceus. William gave Julian a rather impish smile, sensing what he had tried to do.
We're all too excited right now, Julian. You shouldn't try to read this many minds yet under these circumstances.
Julian nodded.
Yeah, I just figured that out. I was hoping I could get a sense from the room what's going on in people's heads.
I'm still confused why Balthazar would be exiled for being too strong.
Christian's eyebrows drew together.
It makes no sense. Surely someone would have wanted to mentor or at least have him in their house as an ally.
William gave him a rather sad smile.
His strength is the reason no one wanted him in their house. He'd already killed one vampire lord, so he'd sort of broken the seal against killing another one. And since vampires normally follow one another because of strength...
They assumed he would take over their house?
Julian guessed. Christian, though, still looked affronted.
He only killed Roan because of the abuse. He wouldn't have been out there gunning for another vampire.
William let out a small laugh.
I wouldn't be so sure about that. Balthazar, or suppose we should call him Eyros now, can be quite ruthless to protect those he cares about. And if he thought that his people would be best suited by him being the lord of the house, he'd do it.
I wouldn't have had to kill them, though, Balthazar said as he bounced over to them, overhearing what they were talking about. I'd just convinced them to hand over the keys of power to me without any bloodshed at all. He put an arm around Christian's shoulders and kissed his temple. Killing is so gauche. If only I had known who I was when that stupid trial took place, I could have convinced everyone to name me king instead of exiling me.
But when Damon returned, he'd have had to oust you.
Christian pointed out dryly. Oh no, I'd bow to him. Balthazar shrugged. Would you be willing to give up the crown so easily? Damon asked, as he too sauntered over and put an arm around Julian's shoulders. Julian curled against him, relishing that strength and warmth. After a taste of seeing what you can do? Yes, most definitely yes. I am many things, but suicidal is not one of them. Besides, if I remembered who I was, I would have remembered you as my best friend, so I would have happily turned aside at ruling anything but the Eyros bloodline. Balthazar sounded almost peppy.
You look strangely happy, Balthazar. You were terrified about telling the house, but you told everyone, didn't you?
Christian questioned. I told the whole Eyros bloodline. Balthazar tipped his head to the side, looking thoughtful. You know, it was like standing on the edge of a cliff and just stepping off and finding one could fly. You are definitely soaring, Eyros, Damon remarked with a smile. Balthazar narrowed his eyes at Damon. I really should say it was like standing on the edge of a cliff until you pushed me off. Yes, that is probably more accurate. I wonder when her time will come. Damon tilted his head towards Fiona, who was standing in Arceus's shadow by the fireplace, staring with unease at all the excited, breathless, and shocked Eyros vampires, celebrating that their lord was the strongest, and thereby the best of the best Eyros. Probably never. She had no contact with her old house after she joined the Order. She actively avoided other women during her time as a confessor, so no one would ever follow her, even if they knew.
And your opinion is not based on your active dislike for her?
Christian tilted his head. Balthazar grinned. Maybe a little, but it is an accurate statement.
Are you pleased with the reaction so far to who you really are?
Julian asked. The room did seem jubilant. The vampires were all talking at once. Their silver eyes were shining. They were texting and conversing on phones and to one another at the same time. Balthazar's gaze swept across the room, and there was a smile on his face. I think so. He frowned slightly. Some people are not surprised.
Eyros Reborn really being Eyros Reborn is not a surprise.
Isabel pointed out. Yes, well, I suppose, Balthazar said, but still seemed annoyed. I was surprised.
You had no idea who you were before?
William asked. Balthazar shook his head. I wasn't even sure that the immortals had ever actually existed, let alone that I was one of them.
I thought perhaps that was a front.
Isabel was frowning. Balthazar blinked. Really?
Not at the time,
She assured him.
but later. I mean, now when it comes out that you're really one of the immortals, I was thinking how clever that was to pretend you didn't believe in them at all. An excellent cover story.
Oh. Balthazar paused, clearly wanting to be seen as clever too. But he shook his head slowly. Alas, I had no clue. I believed I was special because, well, I don't know why, other than being me. But that I was actually a reincarnated immortal, even though people teased that I was, never truly entered my thinking.
What does it mean about the Order?
Isabel asked suddenly, her expression taut.
We were taught that the immortals were our oppressors. King Damon was always our protector. That clearly isn't true. I mean, the first part. So, is the Order completely a lie?
One of the best things about running my own cereal site and shop is that I get to publish anything I want. And I've done some manga collaborations with my artists that are too sexy for Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or Apple. But that's fine, because I can just sell them on my own shop. The Dark Earth Dream is a short side story between Elven Prince Ashurvane and disguised Elven Mage Aiden, featuring the beautiful yaoi artwork of T-Wolf, who also did The Werewolf Next Door. The Werewolf Next Door is a completely standalone yaoi werewolf manga. It's 177 pages, and 100 of those are sexy times. The art manages to be cute and hot at the same time. I don't know how T-Wolf did it. All of these manga are 18-plus works of artistic erotica. They are available in the Wraith Range shop, and the link is in the notes.
There were a few glances between Balthazar and Damon. Balthazar drew in a breath, about to answer her, but then Arceus joined them, and he eagerly turned to the confessor, slapping him on the back. Arceus, brilliant timing. Isabel has some religious questions that are completely in your bailiwick. Balthazar grinned at Arceus. The grin was a little stiff, though. Arceus nodded sagely, not surprised that a religious person like Isabel was having issues with this revelation, and that Balthazar was bucking answering them. Arceus put his hands on Isabel's shoulders.
I too am reeling from the revelations, Isabel.
Arceus told her. His deep voice was soothing, even to Julian, who had no connection to the faith.
I do not have answers other than these. We need to trust what we know about Balthazar and Damon from our own experiences. They are our leaders. They are the ones we can trust. As to our past, we need to wait to find out the truth. The Order is not a history for us, evidently.
As Arceus continued to talk and assure not just Isabel and William about the Order's future, but others who clustered around him, Julian felt a deep well of sadness for them, especially Arceus, who was a good man and seemed to have truly believed in the best parts of the Order. Damon's arm around him tightened. You are right. He is a good man, and he will find a much better faith than the Order ever was or could be, Damon said, reading his thoughts.
A new religion? With you as, well...
God, no. I think not. I am king, but the immortals are their creators, and I am the greatest among them. If they wish to worship me, I would have them do so knowing me truly, and not this fairy tale the Order created. Damon mused.
Yeah, I guess. It's just weird that Arceus is going to create a whole new faith with you and Balthazar, and the other immortals at the center of it.
Julian shook his head in amazement. And you, too. The reason I went to sleep, and the reason I woke up is you, Julian. Damon was gazing down upon him with burning, reverent eyes.
Oh, no, I'm not important like that. I mean, seriously?
Julian couldn't quite contemplate that. Yes, Julian. The story of your life, your parents' lives, and how we met will be crucial to the new faith, Damon told him gently. Your parents will be remembered as the people who discovered my city when no one else could, and they will be remembered as the parents of the king's fledgling. Julian swallowed. He ducked his head.
So they won't be forgotten by the vampires?
No, Julian. They will be venerated, Damon said, and pressed his lips to Julian's head, kissing him long and hard.
I think they'd like that. To be remembered for doing something good and amazing.
Julian responded.
So you told everyone in the Eyros bloodline to join us?
Christian was suddenly saying to Balthazar, breaking Julian out of his private conversation with Damon.
When are they arriving? And where are you going to put all of them? Especially if we're going to Solace to rescue Seer.
We? What's this we business? Balthazar carded his fingers through Christian's curls, which had his best friend catching his master's hand.
We, meaning Julian and myself, included in whatever you have planned, of course.
Christian answered simply. No, Balthazar said, making each word part of a command. You are staying here.
We are coming,
Christian responded with just as much emphasis.
We are.
Julian agreed. No, my one, Damon said.
Yes.
Julian contradicted. No, both masters said. Julian and Christian looked at each other. They were going, no matter what.
I want you to consider something.
Julian began.
If you leave us here, you're putting us in greater danger than if you let us come.
Balthazar let out a coughing laugh. Oh, really?
Yes, really. I believe I know where Julian is going with this.
Christian said, crossing his arms over his chest.
Callie.
What about Callie? Balthazar asked.
The moment you guys leave for Solace is the moment that Callie comes here and attacks. He knows what you both care about, your house members and your fledglings.
Julian explained.
Attacking us while you're away is his best shot at taking us hostage.
It would make perfect sense to attack when you both are away.
Christian agreed with a nod.
That's what I would do. He could use us as tools to negotiate. Or if he's truly hateful, simply to give us our second deaths in order to hurt you both.
Damon's red eyes burned like magma. Only if he's suicidal. Balthazar gave a cold smile.
Callie will just leave Artemis's body, and we won't know who he or she is.
Julian explained.
They'll just be able to strike from the shadows later.
Arceus was stroking his beard as he murmured.
That would seem like a Callie thing to do.
Damon's eyes were almost demonic.
You want to keep me safe,
Julian said to him.
The safest place I can be is with you.
That is not the only consideration. You are. Damon rolled his lips.
What? What am I?
Julian stood up straighter, believing he was going to be insulted in some way. Not intentionally, but still. Don't do it, Damon. Don't do it. Just back away slowly from that statement, Balthazar advised him. But Damon did not heed that advice, and maybe he couldn't have. He definitely couldn't have because Julian wouldn't have allowed it. You do not like death, Damon told him. And there will be death. Julian swallowed but shrugged.
I'm not sure that what I imagine won't be worse than what actually happens. So, I'm going.
Red alert! Red alert! Balthazar murmured. Abort! 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 Damon, though, continued to ignore him. I do not wish you to see me do what must be done. Julian blinked. That seemed to throw Balthazar too. He stared at Damon.
You believe I'll think less of you? I couldn't.
I believe you will be afraid of me, Damon answered. That had silence falling amongst their little group. The vampires around them were still loudly conversing with people that they hadn't heard from in ages. Julian could feel them enjoying the sense of the shoe being on the other foot. They were now the ones on the inside, the ones with the power. Only a few realized the very important discussion going on here.
I won't.
Julian took Damon's hands in his.
I won't.
You are a hero. You have a very strong sense of right and wrong, a sense of honor, Damon told him. And justice, in your understanding, encompasses death, but only as the last resort.
And you don't believe that? I mean, I know you don't. You use death as a means to an end. If you think it's the best way, then that's what you do. But you didn't let me kill Kaymorn.
Julian's voice rose, and the other voices around them quietened. Damon cupped his face. Not because I cared if he lived or died. I would crush him underneath my heel without a second thought, Julian, for the harm he has done you. I would do so for far less. Julian felt absurdly treasured and a little alarmed. Damon, of course, read his mind and understood his feelings. He had guessed what Julian's feelings would be. I do not want to take you to dark places. Solace is beautiful, and I would have you see it that way, without memories of anything else, Damon said.
You can't protect me from everything,
Julian said.
And I definitely don't want you to think you have to protect me from yourself. We can't be like that, Damon. We have to be in this together.
Damon did not look happy about it.
Will it be so terrible what you're going to do?
Julian found himself asking, and others were listening in. No, but you will see. Everyone will see why I am king, Damon answered softly. Julian couldn't completely hide the feeling of dread that pooled in his stomach. He looked into those fiery red eyes and thought of all he had known of Damon so far. He was wondrous in so many ways. He was scary in others, but that was only if Julian forgot who he was and viewed him as some stranger.
I won't be afraid,
Julian promised him.
I could never be afraid of you. And maybe, seeing what you do, I won't be afraid for you either.
Damon smiled. Yes, I suppose there is that benefit, and it will ensure that others who might think to do you harm will remember why they should not. Julian wondered if Damon was speaking to anyone in this room, or perhaps to Callie himself, though how Callie would hear them here, he didn't know. Seeing everyone looking over at them, Balthazar let out a breathy laugh. Oh, I forgot to tell you, in all of the excitement about coming out as an immortal, that we, King Damon and I, and a few others, have determined to overthrow Solace and the Order. Yes, it's a coup, though since Damon is our king, maybe the Order is the coup. Anyways, we're going to storm Solace. Huge eyes were turned to him. Balthazar clapped his hands. So if you'd like to come, let me know. We're going in now. We should leave now, Damon said. Balthazar's grin got a little crazier. We'll be leaving now. Join us next time for episode 70. Risk.
You know what else is, 18 plus, artistic, and a little spicy? The uncut versions of these Everdark episodes. They're also available in the shop as downloadable audiobooks, which is great if you don't have a reliable internet connection. But they're also available, every single one of them so far that we've got out, on the Members Private Podcast. We do hope you check them out. We hope you enjoy them. And if you do purchase something, please do let us know what you think. We love hearing from you guys. Take care.
The Everdark Podcast by Ex Aratare is performed by Edward Fox, Adam Riley, Jay Thillis, Bruno Devant, Kelly Michaels, and Hannah Hart, with Liz Gentle as Seer. Edited by Matthew Prince, continuity by Adrielle Wiggins. Everdark is produced by Wraith Rain Publishing in association with Her Grace Reed Studios. Copyright 2022 by Wraith Rain Publishing.